In 2022, we celebrate 130 years of HBCU football. On December 27th, 1892, Livingstone and Biddle College, now known as Johnson C. Smith University, played in Salisbury, North Carolina, with Biddle winning 5-0. Over time, HBCU football has evolved. HBCU football's popularity continues to rise. Millions attend games each year and millions more watch on television. The HBCU bands provide some of the top entertainment in the country. Over that time, some of the best players to ever play in the National Football League played at HBCUs. Every Monday through Friday on the HBCU Football Daily Podcast, national radio and television host Donal Ware takes a look at what's happening in HBCU football and talks with coaches, players, administrators, and media about the 2022 season. Make sure you join the conversation on social media by using the hashtag HBCU130. Now, here's your host, Donal Ware.
This is the HBCU Football Daily Podcast for today, Thursday, September 8th. I'm Donal Ware. We're going to look at week 2, the schedule for week 2 of the HBCU football season. I'm going to talk about some of the games, a couple of them, and of course, we'll have the preview of our HBCU National Game of the Week. We have all Saturday games with the exception of one, which will be a Sunday game. Central State's going to be at home looking to defeat another CIAA opponent, this time Lincoln. And as you may remember, last week, the Marauders played up in Canton, Ohio, and defeated Winston-Salem State. Shawan's going to be at home hosting Tusculum. Shawan, another out-of-conference game for Shawan, looking to bounce back after the loss last week. West Virginia State looking to make it 2-0, as a matter of fact, ranked in the top 5 in the HBCU Division II coaches poll, as West Virginia State going to be on the road taking on Frostburg State. And as they do in the Mountain East Conference, that's a conference game. You may play one non-conference game in the Mountain East, at least if you're West Virginia State, and the rest of your games, they generally play 11 games, and they play 10 of those are conference games. Virginia University of Lynchburg going to be on the road taking on Presbyterian. Virginia University of Lynchburg looking to lick its wounds after getting blasted last week by Virginia Union 77-0. Bowie State, the number 1 team in the Division II coaches poll, number 2 team in the HBCU media poll, going to be on the road taking on Saginaw Valley State as the Bulldogs look to make it 2-0 on the season. Got some other games for you. St. Augustine's coming back home to Raleigh, taking on or hosting Limestone. Lane gave a valiant effort last week against Arkansas Pine Bluff, falling 48-42. Well, Lane going to be at home taking on a Benedict team who's coming off a blowout victory over Elizabeth City State. Lincoln of Missouri has continued to struggle. The program has continued to struggle, and we'll see what happens as Lincoln, Missouri is at home taking on Northwest Missouri State. Boy, Alabama State's got a tough football game. Alabama State starting off the season 2-0. Of course, in Atlanta, to opening week, defeated Howard, comes back last week. A grinded out game against Miles. Now you got to take it on the road to take on Power 5 UCLA. Alabama State on the road in LA to face UCLA. North Carolina A&T's got a tough game coming off that Aggie Eagle loss last week to North Carolina Central. Follows that up with a game on the road in Fargo, North Dakota, taking on North Dakota State. You look at North Dakota State, 9 national championships in the last 11 years. Mississippi Valley State is on the road taking on Austin Peay. Bethune-Cookman, that was a tough game last week at the University of Miami, but this time Bethune-Cookman at home, an old MEAC rivalry. Bethune-Cookman going to be hosting South Carolina State. The Bulldogs in a similar boat last week on the road at Central Florida. Clark Atlanta coming home, taking on Erskine. Elizabeth City State trying to bounce back from that loss against Benedict. Going to be at home, taking on Livingstone. Norfolk State stepping up again. Back-to-back weeks, the Spartans play FBS opponents, this time on the road, taking on James Madison, newly into FBS play. Virginia Union on the road at Valdosta State. Arkansas Pine Bluff looking to make it 2-0 at home against North American. Grambling State at home taking on Northwestern State. Jackson State, Tennessee State going to get together in Memphis for the Southern Heritage Classic. That promises to be a good football game. Tennessee State coming off a tough loss in the last moments, within the last 3 minutes or so, to Eastern Washington. Meanwhile, Jackson State coming off that blowout victory against Florida A&M. Miles at home taking on a tough West Alabama team. Alabama A&M playing up. 0-1 on the season. Alabama State had to play UAB last week. Now another FBS opponent taking on Troy. It is Alcorn State. Tough loss to Stephen F. Austin last week. Now going to play up on the road in New Orleans against Tulane. Allen going to be at home hosting Johnson C. Smith. In the Battle of Delaware, Delaware State going to be on the road taking on Delaware. Let's see how Delaware State, Delaware State made it a close game on last year. Let's see what happens. A closer game, I should say, a closer game than it's been in years past. Let's see what happens to the Hornets this week. I really like the Hornets football team. Edward Waters at home taking on Savannah State. Those two programs separated by maybe an hour and a half or so. Hampton at home, Tuskegee coming to visit Hampton. You talk about two historical teams, both having ties to Booker T. Washington. Morehouse going to be at home taking on West Georgia. North Carolina Central, an emotional win against North Carolina A&T. Going to be at home taking on Winston-Salem State. Remember, this was a 7-point game last year when the Rams came to Durham. The Battle of Baltimore. Morgan State on the road taking on Townsend. Virginia State looking to get its first victory of the season. Going to be at home taking on a Bluefield State that came off a big win over Johnson C. Smith on last week. Bluefield State, as a matter of fact, got the 2-point conversion at home in overtime to win that football game. Shaw going to be on the road, traveling all the way to Detroit to take on Wayne State. Southern, a tough game. LSU not happy about the loss that it had to Florida State. Southern coming off that blowout win on last week. And, but boy, it's a tough game. Southern going to be right across the street, in essence, taking on LSU. Texas Southern is on the road at North Texas. Prairie View A&M is on the road at Abilene Christian. Texas College at home against Langston. If you're Langston, Texas College has struggled. You want to get off to that 2-0 start, particularly in Sooner Athletic Conference play when these two HBCUs meet in Tyler, Texas. Fayetteville State, looking to make it 2 in a row, is hosting Wingate. Howard stepping up, FBS opponent in Tampa, taking on South Florida. Florida Memorial is going to be on the road taking on Southeastern. And in the Sunday game, Fort Valley State hosts Kentucky State in the HBCU Football Classic in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Both teams looking to start the season off 2-0. So that's a look at the Week 2 rundown of the HBCU football schedule. Of course, don't forget to tell a couple of friends about the HBCU Football Daily Podcast, where you can find us on our website at BOXTOROW.com. You can also listen at iHeartMedia.com or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget, you can also watch us on the Box to Row YouTube page. talk with you tomorrow.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the HBCU Football Daily Podcast. You can also listen to the podcast at BOXTOROW.com, iHeartMedia, or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to get your HBCU football fix on BOXTOROW with Donal Ware each weekend on the radio station near you, and on SiriusXM on HBCU, Channel 142, and on ESPNU Radio on SiriusXM, Channel 84. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at BOXTOROW for the latest in HBCU football, and don't forget to tell a friend.